Kia ora friends, welcome back to my studio. I'm Gina, and in today's video we're going to be talking about scale. So I've got a couple of projects on my table today, and I'm going to talk through each one of them and specifically talk about the differences between each of the scales. So we go from 112, 124 to 148. So let's get started. Okay, let's start with 112 scale. Basically, in real life, 1 foot equals 1 inch. In dollhouse scales, we've got, so 1 foot in real life, 1 foot in dollhouse scale, but in real measurements that's 1 inch. So how do we get into 112 scale? So basically in every 1 foot, it's made up of 12 inches. So that's how we get our calculation of 112 scale. 1 foot is broken down into 12 segments, which are inches. So that makes it 112 scale. So one of the things that I've done is I have actually measured my door in my house. And my door in my house is 32 inches by 78 inches. So how do we get that down to 112 scale? So one of the things that I have is a ruler that is broken down into dollhouse scale. So each inch is divided into 12. However, if you don't have one of these rulers, the easiest way that I've found to do this is to actually just draw it out. Let me just backtrack a little bit. First of all, we need to divide these measurements into feet and inches. So 32 inches is 2 feet 8 inches, and 78 inches is 6 feet 6 inches. So that'll give us a baseline of where we can work from, because it's easier to break down, to work out how to break down these numbers rather than the full. In my mind anyway, others may find it easier to break it down in another way. So in order to get the difference, because 1 foot is divided by 12, but 1 inch is divided by 16 or 34 or 64, depending on which one you want to go with. We're just going to use 16 for this example, and all I would do is draw it out. So I just draw any measurement, doesn't really matter, it doesn't have to be to exact scale. Then I just divide it in half, and then I just divide those halves again, because this gives me my half, quarter and 3/4, which are exactly the same regardless of whether it's 16 or 12 that you're dividing it into. So 16 is the fraction measurements for dividing it into an inch, and then 12 is the dollhouse scale that we need to use in order to go from 1 foot down to inches within a foot. It'll make more sense, I hope, hopefully in a minute. So let's just divide this one into 12. So each of these sections get divided into 3, which is going to give us 12 inches in 1 foot. So when we've got something that's 2 foot 8 inches, this is easier to map out. So we know what 2 feet are, so that's 2 inches. But we also need to know what 8 inches is. So that would come into here. But now we need to translate that into our sixteenths. And so the easiest way to do that is to, again, just draw it out, and we divide these sections into 4. And all I would do here is just start drawing them out. So we've got 1/16, we've got 1/8. Now if you want to use a ruler, that's fine. I'm not that familiar with inch measurements because I've grown up with the metric system. So millimeters and centimeters I totally understand and get, and so this is my way of getting it clear in my mind so that I can see where these things fall through. So what we've got here is 8 inches, which comes right the way in the middle here, and that actually falls pretty close to 11/16. Now it depends on how detailed that you want to get. You could break this down into 32 or even into 64 to get a absolute true measurement. That's why I feel that these rulers that break it down into 12ths really work quite well, because then you know that you're getting the right measurement. This one here in my mind is close to 11/16, so that's really what we would go with. 2 feet 8 inches, which is equivalent to 11/16 on the ruler. 6 foot 6 inches is really easy because we just know that that's just going to be a half. So that's what we're going to go with. Now let's just draw this out. So 32 inches is 2 feet 8 inches, so 2 inches and 11/16. And then 78 inches is equivalent to 6 feet 6 inches, which is equivalent to 6 inches and a half in 12 scale. Alright, so let's have a look at the actual project. And for this particular one, I've built a barn, and with a sliding door. I 3D printed the mechanism for the sliding door just as another test for the printer, but actually it's turned out really well. So let's have a look at that. Okay, so getting into 1/24 scale. So is 1 foot equals half an inch. And so how do we get to the 24th? Basically, out of 1 foot, it's made up of 24 half inches. So that's how we get our 1/24 scale. And so basically what we've got here is half the size of 1/12. So any of our measurements that we've got here, as we've kind of broken them down, all we need to do is half them to get our 1/24 scale. Luckily my ruler again has been broken down into half scale, so all I need to do is put 2 feet 8 inches across the bottom, so it's half of the width, and then it's also half of the height. So then this is what our half scale looks like. So it's basically half of 12. So if wanting to know where to start, this is a good place to start, is start with the 12th scale, and then anything after that can be just halved or halved again as we get into 48th scale. So this is our half scale. So this is 1/12, this is 1/24, 32 inches is equivalent to 2 feet 8 inches, but in 12th scale it's going to be half of that, so it's 1.4, which is so it'll be 1 inch. So all we need to do is go to our 4, and we're closer to 5/16, so it'll be 5/16. 78 inches is 6 foot 6 inches, and that would come down into 3 inches and a quarter. Okay, so let's have a look at the project that I put together for this. This is actually going to be a wine cellar, and I've used a mixture of wood and craft sticks as well as some foam board to give the brick look. So let's have a look at that. Okay, so last scale is 148, which is half of 124 and a quarter of 112. I think this is going to give it a bit away. So 124 scale is also known as half scale. 148 is also known as quarter scale. So 1 foot equals 1/4 of an inch. And how do we get to the 148? So 1 foot is made up of 48 quarter inches. So now we start getting into needing to halve these numbers again. So let's have a look. So 32 inches is 2 feet 8 inches. Half of that to give us that was 1 foot 4 inches. And then half of that again is actually 8 inches. So half of 1 is 6 inches, and then half of 4 is 2 inches, so 6 plus 2 is 8. So this will give us 8 inches. So as you can see, we've got 8 inches here. Now we know from our original scale over here is that that gives us 11/16. So we know that 8 inches is equivalent to 11/16. And then 78 inches was 6 foot 6 inches. And we need to divide that by 2, which is 3.3. So that would be 1 inch, 7.5. So we would need to go 6, 7.5. So that's 5/8. So 11/16. So that's halfway there. And then we've got 1 inch and 5/8. And so that is half of 1/24. So let's have a look at the 148 scale. What I've done is I've created a little general store, or at least a facade of a general store. So let's have a look at that. So I really hope that you've enjoyed that video, and I hope that my explanation of the scale makes sense. to be honest, everyone has a different way of explaining scale. This is how it makes sense in my head, and maybe it might make sense for you as well. But if it doesn't, don't worry. Somebody will have a different way of explaining dollhouse scale. Hopefully that might resonate with you. So if you've liked this video, consider hitting that like button. It really does help the channel and helps tell YouTube to share it far and wide. And while you're there, consider subscribing. I post a video every week of different themes of dollhouses. I have been working predominantly in 1/12 and 1/24 scale, but I'm really keen to dive into 1/48 or quarter scale, as they also call it as well. Anyway, that's it for this week. Have a fabulous week, everybody, and I will catch you in the next one. Bye for now.